So, we were discussing about the gas separation by membrane based processes, and in the last class we have seen the various modeling aspects of various configurations of gas separation. For example, the completely mixed up model, the cross flow model and the counter current model. Now, for last two cases, for the complete mixing case and the counter current case and the cross flow case, the governing equation will be the ordinary differential equation, because the flow is assumed to be a plug flow. On the other hand, case of completely mixed model, the CSTR model is assumed to be valid, because the feed composition is assumed to be uniform in the permeate chamber as well as in the feed chamber. So, therefore, it is easier to solve the governing equations for the completely mixed model, and we have just looked on typical example of gas separation using the completely mixed model, how to do the calculations. Now, in today's class we will take one more example to solve this particular case, then we will move on to the next topic of our syllabus, that is the surfactant based separation processes. Okay. So, in this problem let us look into example 2 for the gas separation case. In this case, it is desired to find out the membrane area. We are using a membrane, thickness is given, it is 3 into 10 to the power minus 3 centimeter, and with oxygen permeability, it is a case of oxygen separation of oxygen and nitrogen. Okay. Separation of oxygen and nitrogen. The oxygen permeability of the with respect to membrane is given, it is P A prime is 300 into 10 to the power minus 10 centimeter cube at STP centimeter divided by second centimeter square centimeter of mercury. It is given, and alpha star is given as 10. That means, the oxygen permeability will be 10 times higher compared to the what is the alpha star? Alpha star is basically P A prime by P B prime. So, oxygen permeability is 10 times higher compared to the nitrogen permeability through the membrane. The feed rate is given as QF is equal to 2 into 10 to the power 6 centimeter cube at STP per second. The fraction cut theta is given as 0.2, that we are expecting to get 20% of the feed coming to the permeate. The pressures are given, feed side pressure is maintained at 200 centimeter of mercury, and lower side pressure, that is the permeate side pressure, is maintained at 20 centimeter mercury, and we assume the completely mixed up model. Completely mixing model, we have to find out the membrane area that is required for this purpose, permeate composition, that is Yp mole fraction of oxygen in the permeate, and reject composition, that is X naught, the mole fraction of the oxygen in the reject stream. So, these were the this is the problem. So, given this problem, we have to find out the membrane area, the permeate concentration, permeate composition and the reject composition. So, the whole system can be characterized. Okay. Now, let us look into the solution. The solution is that your feed composition is known, because it is a case of air, oxygen and nitrogen. The mole fraction of oxygen in air is 0.21. Okay. So, we take XF as 0.21, that is the natural mole fraction of oxygen in air. Okay. So, A1 is given as theta plus PL by pH minus PL by pH times theta minus alpha star theta minus alpha star PL over PH plus alpha star PL over PH times theta. So, if you put various values, this turns out to be 0.2 divided by plus 20 by 200 minus 20 by 200 into 0.2 minus 10 into 0.2 minus 10 into 0.2, 10 into 20 by 200 plus 10 into 20 by 200 into 0.2. So, this turns out to be 0.2 plus 0.1 minus 0.02 minus 2 minus 1 plus 0.2. So, it turns out to be minus 2.52. Okay. So, that is the value of constant A 1 given with the given conditions. Now, let us calculate the variable B 1. It is given as 1 minus theta minus x f minus PL over PH plus PL over PH times theta plus alpha star theta plus alpha star PL over PH minus alpha star PL by PH times theta plus alpha star XF. Okay. Now, you put different values. So, it becomes 1 minus 0.2 minus 0.21 minus 20 divided by 200 plus 20 divided by 200 into 0.2 plus 10 into 0.2 plus 10 into 20 divided by 200 minus 10 into 20 divided by 200 into 0.2 plus 10 into 0.21. Is the feed composition is 21 mole fraction of oxygen. So, it becomes 1 minus 0.2 minus 0.21 minus 0.1 plus 0.02 plus 2 plus 1 minus 0.2 plus 2.1, and the total comes out to be 5.41. Similarly, you can calculate the parameter C 1, and the parameter C 1 is nothing but alpha star times x f, and this is minus 10 into 0.21. So, it becomes minus 2.1, and you can get the expression of Y p, that is the composition of permeate. So, it is minus b plus under root b square minus 4 a c divided by 2 a. So, if you put all the values, it turns out to be 5.41 plus 5.41 square minus 4 into 2.52 into minus 2.1 divided by 2 into minus 2.52, and the value of Y p turns out to be 0.501. That means almost 51%. So, you will be having a composition in the permeate which is rich in oxygen to the tune of 51% compared to nitrogen. Okay. So, x naught is the composition in the reject stream, that is nothing but x f minus theta into Y p divided by 1 minus theta. So, this turns out to be 0.21 minus 0.2 into 0.51 divided by 1 minus 0.2, and this turns out to be 0.135. Okay. And A m, the membrane area, if you look into the formula, this was theta into q f multiplied by Y p divided by P a prime over T, that is the thickness of the membrane, pH times x naught minus P L times Y p, this is the pressure difference, is the pressure difference across the membrane. This is the partial pressure in the of oxygen in the feed stream, this term is the partial pressure of oxygen in the permeate stream, and if you put the values, theta was 20%. So, it is 0.2 into 2 into 10 to the power 6 2 into 10 to the power 6, that was given, into 0.51 divided by 300 into 10 to the power minus 10 divided by 3 into 10 to the power minus 3, that is P a prime by T, 200 into 0.135 minus 20 into 0.51. So, this membrane area turns out to be 1.21 into 10 to the power 9 centimeter square. So, you can find out the various parameters, you can find out the permeate composition, you can find out the reject composition. That means, initially you are having in the feed 21% oxygen, at the end of the operation in the reject stream you are going to get 13.5% of oxygen. That means, the feed stream or the reject stream has been stripped away oxygen and the permeate stream is enriched by oxygen, and the to achieve this separation we have to provide a membrane area of 1.2 into 10 to the power 9 centimeter square. That much of membrane area one has to provide. So, therefore, we have if we summarize whatever we have done till now on gas separation is, we talked about the principles of gas separations using membranes. We talk about the mechanism and things like that, and then we looked into various configurations of the flow depending on the flow characterization, configurations of system depending on flow characteristic. First one, we got the completely mixed up model, completely mixed model. Secondly, we got the cross flow model. Third, we looked into the counter current model. We did not look into the co-current model, because counter current model is generally more efficient compared to the co-current model. So, there is the popular operation is counter current configuration. Now, in completely mixed up model, the assumption is that it is like a CSTR. That means, the solutes are completely mixed up in the permeate stream and completely mixed up in the feed stream. So, therefore, there is no profile of solute concentration in the feed chamber or in the permeate chamber. They are uniform throughout the volume. Next one is the cross flow model. Here we found out that there are it is like a plug flow reactor, and the concentration of the solute will vary as a function of membrane area or the length of the module. So, therefore, the governing equations were ODE, and this case is much simpler, and we got almost an analytical solution in our model. And in the counter current model, it is entirely it is like a plug flow reactor. That means, at every location of the membrane length, the concentration of the solute will be varying, and you will be having a system of ordinary differential equation ODE plus DAE, that means ordinary differential equations plus it is called a DAE system, differential algebraic equation. That means, it consists of 2 ODEs for a binary system and one algebraic equation. Okay. Now, these equations were solved using Runge-Kutta-Foer method, and one can have numerically one can find out what will be the concentration of the solute or the desired species along the membrane length, and one can find out the various composition of the reject stream, permeate stream, membrane area required, so on and so forth. Okay. So, that gives roughly an idea how the gas separation using the membrane based separation process can be modeled, and how the systems can be designed as far as from the engineering point of view. Okay. So, next we go to the go over to the next topic, that is the surfactant based separation process. That is very important. This is a type of novel separation processes, surfactant based separation processes, and these processes are generally developed in the last 30 to 40 years, okay, maybe maximum up to 50 years. So, these processes are developed since last 40 to 50 years, in fact even less than that, it will be from last 20 to 30 years, okay. And most of them are have been found out that in the laboratory scale they are highly feasible, but in the plant scale or in the pilot plant scale people are the research is ongoing how to implement them, how to scale them up. Now, these surfactant based separation processes are basically depending the major characteristic of these processes are the efficiency of these processes are depending on the typical properties of the surfactants. So, let us look into what is a surfactant. Surfactant is nothing but a surface active agent. Okay. There are some typical properties of surface active agents, and the first property is that when you put the surfactant, the surfactants will be having a hydrophilic head and a hydrophobic tail. That means, these are typical surfactant molecule. It has a hydrophilic head and it has a hydrophobic tail. That means, this hydrophilic head likes the water environment, it is water loving group. On the other hand, the hydrophobic tail is water repelling group, it does not like the water environment. So therefore, it wants to have a non-aqueous system, for example, organic solvents. So, therefore, if you have some organic pollutant present in the system, so this particular tail group of the surfactant will love to have that environment of organic pollutants or the organic phase. Now, there are several types of surfactants that we will again go into details of this. One is the ionic surfactant, and is the non-ionic surfactants, zwitterionic surfactant. Now, these ionic surfactants, they have one ionic group present, like for example, sodium dodecyl sulphate. Okay. This sodium dodecyl sulphate will be having Na plus and SO4 minus in its structure. So, therefore, this imparts an ionic characteristic. You can have the non-ionic surfactants like polyether oxygen. You can have the zwitterionic surfactants, they have the both ionic and non-ionic characteristic. Now, there are several properties of the surfactants which impart the which leads to the separation of solutes. For example, if you have a if you have a water and if you have a bucket of water, let us say, and if you put some surfactants, then the surfactant head groups will be water loving, the hydrophilic groups, and the surfactant tail groups will be hydrophobic, they do not like water. So, they will be aligned at the surface, pointing to the head towards the solution and pointing the tail away from the solution, and it will be pointing to the air, suppose air and water. So, therefore, surfactant monomers or surfactant molecules will be aligned themselves across the air water interface, pointing their hydrophilic head towards the water and their hydrophobic tail towards the air. Now, if you keep on increasing the concentration of surfactants, add more surfactants into solutions, in solution, then what will happen? This surface will be no longer infested by the surfactant molecules. What these surfactant monomers will do? They will form globules to achieve the minimum energy configuration that is thermodynamically favorable and stable. What is that configuration? It is a solid sphere. It's not a solid, it's a sphere. So, so if you keep on adding surfactant in solution beyond a particular concentration, these surfactants form a globule or a sphere. Surfactants form spheres known as micelles. Okay. So, in micelles, anyway, we will be going these things in detail whenever we are talking about micelle enhanced ultrafiltration. This I am just mentioning the property of the surfactants which will be causing or leading to the separation of the solutes. These micelles will be having the hydrophilic head facing towards the aqueous environment and hydrophobic tail inside. So, if you have a solute that will be present, that is the organic phase, that will be immediately going into the hydrophobic environment. It will be immediately solubilized into the hydrophobic environment. Now, these micelles are being larger in size, they will be trapping the organics and they can be separated by the by a typical suitably selected membrane, and one can remove the organic pollutants using micellar enhanced ultrafiltration, and this process is known as MEUF or micellar enhanced ultrafiltration. So, depending on the properties of the surfactants, typically these surfactant based separation processes can broadly be categorized into 3 categories based on the properties of surfactants. The separation processes are categorized into 3 classes. One is cloud point extraction, secondly micellar enhanced ultrafiltration, third one is liquid membrane. In fact, what we will be doing, we will be going one after another in this sequence, and whenever we discuss a particular separation system, we will discuss about the more detailed mechanisms or phenomena or the fundamentals involved in all these processes. And finally, our aim is to find out our aim is to get an idea how the designing of such systems can be done commercially in a commercial scale as far as from the chemical engineer point of view. Okay. So, the first separation process that we will be talking about is the cloud point extraction. This is another property of the surfactants, of the non-ionic surfactants. These non-ionic surfactants has a typical property, this is known as the cloud point. What is a cloud point? It is a when you increase the temperature of aqueous solution of a non-ionic surfactants. All these surfactants are basically surface active agents, they are soluble in water, aqueous solution. Okay. Now, if you have an aqueous solution of non-ionic surfactant, and if you keep on increasing the concentration of increasing the temperature of the solution of the system, then beyond a particular temperature there occurs a phase separation. What is that phase separation? The surfactant molecules will, all of the surfactant molecules will combine into one phase. Okay, it is a thick phase, and the other phase is basically an aqueous solution. So, you can, if you look into the system, you can clearly visibly you can distinguish that you will be having a lean phase, that is quite density will be less. So, it will be on the top, and the bottom phase will be a hazy one where all the surfactant molecules have come up. and there is a particular critical temperature beyond which it occurs. That particular temperature is known as the cloud point temperature of the non-ionic surfactants. So, what is the definition of the cloud point? It is temperature beyond which the aqueous solution of a non-ionic surfactant separates into two phases. One is surfactant rich phase, another is surfactant lean phase or the aqueous phase. Okay. This particular temperature is known as the cloud point corresponding to that particular non-ionic surfactant. So, every non-ionic surfactant will be having its own characteristic cloud point temperature. Now, there are some names of these two phases. This surfactant rich phase is known as Coiservate phase or the dense phase, or dense phase, and aqueous phase is known as lean phase or a dilute phase. Okay. So, the Coiservate phase will be rich in surfactants. So, this Coiservate phase is also known as it is rich in surfactants. And it is mainly constituted by the surfactant micelles. Okay. Because most of the non-ionic surfactants, when we will talk about the micelle enhanced ultrafiltration, we will talk about the micellar concentration. Mostly these non-ionic surfactants will be having very low critical micellar concentration. So, if you have a concentration slightly above that, you will be forming the micelles. Now, if you increase the temperature of the surfactant solutions, these micelles will be separated and going into the Coiservate phase. So, mostly this Coiservate phase will be rich in surfactants, and almost all the surfactant micelles will be present in the Coiservate phase. So, it is mainly constituted by the micelle. By the surfactant micelles. Okay. And the lean phase or the dilute phase or the aqueous phase, this is mostly water. There are surfactant monomers are present, lean in surfactants, and you will be having surfactant monomers with concentration. What is the concentration of that? At a concentration level close to CMC or critical micellar concentration. Okay. Now, this, so basically they will be having separate surfactant monomers, and the concentration will be near to the critical micellar concentration. And in the Coiservate, all the surfactant micelles will be agglomerated, and they will form a separate dense phase. So, if you have a phase separator funnel, the lower phase will be the Coiservate phase and the top phase will be the dilute aqueous phase. Now let us come to the definition of the critical micellar concentration. concentration, or it is also abbreviated as CMC. Now, when you keep on increasing, as I said earlier, that when you have surfactant molecule at a surfactant at a lower concentration, the monomers will be separated, each of them will be separated. Now, if you have, let us say, a bucket of water, if you add a surfactant, then the surfactant monomers will be aligned near the surface, and the alignment will be such that the hydrophilic head will be pointing towards the aqueous phase or the water side, because it is water loving, and the hydrophobic tail will be pointing towards the air. So, now if you keep on increasing the surfactant concentration beyond a particular point, these surfactants will be no longer staying in the interface, they will form globules to attain the minimum thermodynamic configuration. So, with the minimum energy, which is thermodynamically favorable and stable, that configuration will be a spherical configuration. This sphere is known as the micelle. So, beyond, so what is the definition of critical micellar concentration? Beyond a particular concentration, surfactant monomers combine in a configuration with the lowest energy, with the minimum energy, and this configuration is nothing but a sphere, a spherical configuration. That is thermodynamically stable, and favorable, of course. Now, these globules are known as the micelles. These micelles, the hydrophilic head will be pointing towards the aqueous phase, and the hydrophobic tail will be pointing towards the core, inside the towards the core of the micelle. So, core of the micelle or within the micelle, the environment is hydrophobic, and outside it is hydrophilic. Okay, now these configure. So, these are the basically called micelles, and this is a definition of a critical micellar concentration, that beyond a particular concentration it forms the globules. Now, these micelles will be of the non-ionic surfactants will be coming to the coacervate phase when there is a phase separation, when there is a when the temperature of the particular solution goes beyond the cloud point temperature. Now, let us look into the mechanism of phase separation. How the two phases will separate. This phase change about CPT is reversible. That means, first characteristic is phase separation about the cloud point temperature is reversible. That means, if you increase, if you go beyond a particular temperature, cloud point temperature, the phases will separate, the micellar rich phase and the aqueous phase. If you lower down the temperature below the cloud point temperature, again the two phases will mix up and you will be having the phase as earlier. So, it is a reversible phenomena, and the possible mechanisms are: number 1, for non-ionic surfactants, dielectric constant of water decreases as temperature increases. Okay. Dielectric constant decreases as the constant of water decreases as temperature increases. What does it do? This results into, this reduces the reduction in interaction between the hydrophilic part of surfactant and water. What does it mean? It means that there is a dehydration occurs at the external layer of the micelle, because at the outer surface there is the hydrophilic layer. So, if it does not like the water environment, then there occurs dehydration. Okay. So, water will be repelled from the outer surface. So, it results into dehydration occurs on external layer of micelles. Okay. The second mechanism, so when so therefore, every micelles will be having a tendency to repel water out of it. Okay. The second possible mechanism is that at lower temperature means below cloud point temperature, intermicellar forces are dominant and they are repulsive forces. Intermicellar repulsive forces are dominant. Okay. But when the cloud point is approached or above cloud point temperature, they become attractive. So, what is the net result? Net result is the micelles would like to repel water and they will form cohesive forces among itself. So, the phase separation occurs. Now, what is the, so that is the mechanism of phase separation, and what is the mechanism of solubilization of solutes in Quasar-Wette phase? Let us look into that. Mechanism of solubilization of solutes in Quasar-Wette phase. The first mechanism is that if you look into the structure of micelle, the outer phase is water loving or hydrophilic. The interior of the micelle is hydrophobic in the aqueous solution. So, if you have some organic solutes present in your system, for example, phenol, for example, aniline or some dye or some kind of organics like PCB or things like that, then these hydrophobic organic solutes will be immediately solubilized within the hydrophobic core of the micelle. So, and this transfer or solubilization is almost instantaneous. There is and the time gap will be in the order of nanosecond. So, whenever you will be having solutes, organic solutes present in the system, they will be immediately solubilized within the hydrophobic core of the micelles. So, organics get solubilized within hydrophobic core of micelles. Now, once that is done, then if you have a, let us say, some concentration of the organic solutes, they will be completely solubilized within the hydrophobic core. Now, next step, what you have to do, you increase the temperature of the solution. Now, if you go beyond cloud point temperature, these micelles which are loaded with the organic solutes, they will be separated into the coacervate phase. There will be phase separation occurs, and these micelles loaded with the organic pollutants will go into the coacervate phase. Micelles loaded with organic solutes go to the coacervate phase. So, you will be having a clear, almost a clear solution in the aqueous phase, okay, that is devoid of the organic pollutants. So, thus the solubilization of the solutes in the and cleaning up or the separation of the organic pollutants will occur in the in the cloud point extraction, and this whole process is known as the cloud point extraction. Process is known as cloud point extraction or CPE. And what is the neat results of it? The outcome is you will be having a solute rich coacervate phase, pollutant rich coacervate phase, and at the same time you will be having an aqueous phase which is almost devoid of the pollutants. Dilute phase, this is nothing but the aqueous phase which is devoid of organic pollutants. Okay. So, that is the principle of cloud point extraction, and then let us look into some of the applications of typical applications of cloud point extraction. Removal of PAH, this is known as the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon. These PAH are abundantly available from in the aqueous phase or in the water near the refineries. These PAH are the carcinogenic, they are cancer causing the components. So, removal of PACs, PAH, removal of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, polychlorinated compounds, dyes, heavy metals, etc. So, these are all cancer causing components present in the aqueous system in depending on their source of the of the water that you are going to have in different places, different locations. Now, cloud point extraction can be utilized to remove all these pollutants selectively from the aqueous stream. So, in fact, what it does in the, since the coacervate phase will be a concentrated phase, its volume will be much less. So, in a small volume one can capture or trap all the pollutants in one particular phase. So, therefore, the concentration, since the volume is much less in the coacervate phase, the concentration of the pollutants will be very high in that particular phase. And what is what does that mean? That means it will be a concentrated phase. So, one can use this thing one can use cloud point extraction for concentration of solutes. So, this has a tremendous implication in the analysis. So, what is the implication? Implication is if you have a dilute stream of a dilute solution of a particular pollutant, then it is very difficult to analyze it, to measure its concentration quantitatively using a using an instrument, for example UV spectrophotometer or HPLC or whatever. But if you can increase the concentration, it will be much easier to detect it via an instrument. So, cloud point extraction is often used as an analytical tool to increase the concentration of such a pollutant, so that its concentration will be increased and then it will be detected in an instrument. So, this is a very good useful method for analytical chemistry. This is an useful method for as far as the pollution control is concerned. This is an useful method as far as the analytical chemistry is concerned. Now, let us look into some of the typical non-ionic surfactants. The first and well studied non-ionic surfactant is known as Triton X100. Okay. Its chemical name is isooctyl phenoxy polyethoxy ethanol. Okay. It has a typical molecular weight of 628. Okay. It has a CMC which will be extremely small. CMC will be 2.8 into 10 to the power minus 4 molar. That means, if you add the Triton X surfactant in the aqueous solution such that its concentration just goes beyond this value 2.8 into 10 to the minus 4, you see it is so small. Okay. It is in the order of 10 to the power minus 4 molar. If you increase several drops of this particular surfactant in the aqueous solution, if its concentration goes beyond this particular value, they form micelles. Okay. So, spherical surfactant micelles will be formed, and the cloud point temperature for this particular surfactant is 64 degree centigrade. The next common non-ionic surfactant is Triton X114. Its name is octyl phenol polyethylene glycol ether. It has a molecular weight of 537. It has a CMC in the same order of magnitude of that of Triton X100. It is 2.1 into 10 to the power minus 4 molar, and it has a cloud point temperature 37 degree centigrade. So, the drastic difference between the two surfactant is that in Triton X100 it has a cloud point temperature quite high, 64 degree centigrade. On the other hand, in Triton X114 it has a cloud point temperature almost half of it. Okay. It is very close to 40 degree centigrade, it is 37 degree centigrade. So, therefore, if you would like to have a cloud point extraction using Triton X100, you have to go for higher temperature. That means, your solution temperature must be around 64 degree centigrade. So, therefore, you must be spending much energy, much thermal energy to achieve that separation, because your operating temperature must be around 70 degree centigrade or 80 degree centigrade, so that it goes beyond the cloud point temperature. On the other hand, if you go for the cloud point extraction using Triton X114, you can operate at a very low temperature around 37 degree centigrade, 40 degree centigrade. But on the other hand, Triton X114 is much costlier compared to Triton X100. So, one has to have a trade off between the cost and the cost of the raw materials and the cost that is incurred into the into the utility, like the energy that you are going to put into the system. Now, what we do next? I will present a case study of removal of a particular dye using cloud point extraction. I will present a case study of removal of a dye. It is known as the chrysoidine dye for using cloud point extraction, and both a typical concentration of 100 ppm of the dye is selected. That we have selected is around 100 ppm, that means ppm is milligram per liter, and both Triton X 100 and Triton X TX 114 are used. TX 114 and TX 100 both are used. Now, cloud point temperature of TX 114 that we have seen is around 40 degrees centigrade, and this will be it is 37 degrees centigrade and this will be 64 degrees centigrade. So, one can have the operating temperature slightly above that. Okay, this is the cloud point temperature. So, operating temperature will be higher than this. So, minimum operating temperature that one should have will be for TX 114 will be around 40 degrees centigrade, and for TX 100 it can be around 70 degrees centigrade. Okay. Now, the temperature obviously is lower for TX 114, but on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, it will be costlier. Now, we can define the extraction of dye. The separation must be quantified, right? How much separation has been achieved, that must be quantified. So, it is known as the extent of extraction. For this particular case it is dye, but it may be any other solute. So, this extent of extraction is defined by the symbol E, and it is defined as 1 minus CD by Cf multiplied by 100%. So, it is expressed in percentage, and CD is concentration of solute in aqueous phase, and Cf is the concentration of solute in feed, and this solute in this particular case is dye. Now, also during cloud point extraction, as we have mentioned, the volume of the quasi-rapid phase will be much lower compared to the initial volume, because if you observe the mechanism of cloud point extraction is that removal or the repulsion of the water out from the outside layer of the ethoxy group of the micelles. So, it will be dehydrated. So, most of the micelles will be coming into the quasi-rapid phase, reducing its volume drastically. So, volume will be reduced compared to the feed volume in the quasi-rapid phase. So, this is known as this is defined into the volume reduction factor. And this volume reduction factor is defined as volume of the quasi-rapid phase divided by total volume of solution. Okay. So, that is the definition of volume reduction factor, and typically the value of Fc will be in the range of 0.04 to 0.23 for various operating conditions. I intentionally gave these values because you can understand what is the actual volume reduction will occur. The volume reduction will be not in the order of 2 times, 3 times, not by 50%, not by 70%. It will be extremely small. So, volume reduction will be to the tune of 0.04, 0.23. That means 4% to 20%. Okay, that will be the order of volume reduction we are talking about in this particular case. Okay, now we can give an idea how much extraction one can have. If you have a surfactant concentration for 100 ppm, for 100 ppm dye in feed, and if you select a surfactant concentration of 0.25 molar, okay, then one can remove 95% of dye using TX 114, TX 100, and using TX 114 you can extract in the tune of about 100%. Okay. So we will so if you plot the extraction of dye in percentage as a function of surfactant concentration, as you increase the surfactant concentration, the extraction will be more. So, you are going to get a curve something like this. The efficiency of TX 114 is much higher. So, the operating temperature is 40 degree, and TX 100 the operating temperature is 75 degree centigrade, and one can get an extraction efficiency that will be quite high. This is at 0.25 molar. Okay. So it will be close to so at 0.25 molar one can get around 100% extraction if you use TX 114, and you will be getting around 95%, this will be around 100%, and this will be around 90% extraction using TX 100. Okay. Anyway, we will continue, we will stop here, we will continue this discussion in the next class. Thank you very much.